Okay, so welcome to this little video to explain the on-field capacity builder. Okay, well, this is an idea. The genesis behind this, or the idea behind this, is that we're going to bridge the gap between the gym and the field. And what I mean by that is we're going to introduce some movements and some activities that are going to expose us to a level of tissue capacity that's going to carry over onto the field, that is going to hopefully make us a little bit more resilient when we do get onto the field. Okay, and the idea of this is, right, that an awful lot of the time in our training, number one, we don't reach maximal velocity with sprints. Okay, and then when we go into a game, that's where we are going to meet, and we are going to be exposed to those high sprint demands. So it's important that we expose ourselves to them through our training, right? So that's the first thing. The second thing is, in our training, we have a period of time where we're fatigued and we have the ability to dose some loads under fatigued in a controlled manner, whereas we don't have that at game time either. Okay, so this is a really important concept, and I think that if we can manage this and if we can implement this, then it's going to, as I said already, bridge the gap between the gym and the field, and it's going to make us a little bit more tolerant to the loads we're going to experience at game time. Okay, so when do we do this? We do our maximal effort sprints post warm-up. So right after we do our warm-up and we're ready to go, it's maximal effort sprints. So that's when the CNS is going to be at its freshest. That's going to be when we have the ability to have that window of opportunity to go maximal effort with our sprints. We don't have a ball in our hand. There's nothing that we have to really think about here, bar our start point and our finish point. Okay, we don't have the cognitive demand that we would have in a small-sided game or anything like that. All I'm asking you to do here is sprint as hard as you can for the distance I prescribe. Okay. And then when we have a look at pre-cool down, that's where we're going to work on our change of direction and our cuts. The reason for this is we're going to do this when we have our last running block done, where we have maybe 60 minutes of training, 70 minutes of training underneath our belt. There's going to be an element of fatigue, and now we're going to dose some eccentric load. We're going to really challenge some skills and capacities that we have around change of direction and cuts under fatigue, and that in itself is going to offer an adaptation as well. Okay, and then we finish off with some strength work, and again we're going to focus on the common areas that are the commonly seen areas that occur in terms of injuries within our sport, and we're going to focus on Nordics, Copenhagens, and squat walks. So with our maximum velocity runs, I want you to do this twice a week. Okay, so week one, you're going to do 5 sets by 20 meters. Week two, 5 sets by 30, building 10 meters every week. Okay, until we get to week 6, where we're doing 5 sets by 80 meters. Now, the goal of this is that it's maximal velocity running. For the first week, it's only a 20-meter sprint. Okay, but that increases as the weeks go on. So we're going to be looking for higher demands in terms of distance, and this adheres to the law of specificity. If you want to build capacity for sprinting, then the most purest way to do that is by sprinting, right? So this is going to expose our hamstrings, our calves to loads, our Achilles to loads that are highly specific to the demands of our sport. Okay, so our recovery, I want you to take plenty of recovery for this. You walk back. Okay, there's no need to run back. I'm not going to nail you with a specific recovery time, but for the time it takes you to do the sprint, okay, if it takes you 10 seconds to do a 20-meter sprint, which it shouldn't, but let's just say it does, right? If it takes you 10 seconds to do a 20-meter sprint, I want you to take like an 80-second recovery. So about an 8-to-1 recovery with this. So it's loads of recovery time, okay? And it's done right after our warm-up before we go into our ball play. So then we have, after our running block at the end, we have change of direction, okay? And we're going to do the pro agility test with this, all right? Or the pro agility run, sorry. It can be a test as well. Anyway, throughout the 3 weeks, okay, we're building it up, we're ramping it, we're always doing the 5-10-5, all right, and we go and build it up to by the time we get to week 6, we're doing 10 5-10-5 runs. Again, the recovery with this, give yourself, plenty of recovery. I don't want you to feel like it's conditioning or anything like that. But again, you have the autonomy to play with the recovery times yourself. Don't rush it. Okay, we still want to be able to control this and hold our skill under duress and fatigue. Okay, then we move on to some individual work, right, when it comes to accepting force. So here you can do some deceleration work, some lateral bounded sticks, some linear hops, whatever you want to do. But just set your clock for 4 minutes and, really work on accepting those single leg forces. You could do lateral shuffles. Again, you have the autonomy on this one, right? And then you finish off. The very last thing you do before we stretch and go is capacity work. We're going to work Nordic, squat walk, and Copenhagen squeeze. So we can partner up for these, right? For the Nordics, we're going 3x5 for the first 3 weeks, squat walks 3x15 for the first 3 weeks, and then Copenhagen squeeze 3x20 to 30 seconds for the first 3 weeks. Now for the Copenhagens, go to a dugout, go to the stand, find a bench that you can elevate and find a position on, right? And then weeks 3 to 6, you're building that up to 5x5, 5x15, and 5x20 to 30 seconds. Now, with this pro agility test, I have this video here from Lauren Landau actually explaining the test, okay? You can watch through the whole lot of it if you wish, but it's a really good explanation and overview of the test and what we're looking for on the test.
5-10-5, also known as pro agility. This is a test that a lot of teams, a lot of sports teams and coaches are using to identify agility. Where I think it does identify agility, I think it really gives us a better sense of how well the person understands their body and how to maximize their ability to accelerate, decelerate, and then change direction. I use this drill twofold. It's an evaluation purely on time, and it's also an evaluation on quality of movement. As you're going to see today, I'll talk to you about the steps and the teaching progressions that I implement to my athletes, but I'll also show you common faults, so you have a better idea of recognizing these faults and then correcting these faults. Again, I love this test for a couple reasons. One, it's kind of the gold standard test right now when you look at the NFL and some other organizations who are using it to identify agility measures. But also, this is a test that high schools, colleges have picked up a ton and have used with their athletes, from conditioning tools to testing parameters. When a test like this has been done often, it should really give me a sense of how well the athlete understands how to move. If this was a novel drill that they had never done before, I would expect to see significant movement faults. However, since this is a closed drill, we know the start and we know the stop. And as I said, many coaches are implementing this drill across the country. These athletes have seen it time and time again. So again, I can pick up on their true athleticism and maybe how they've gotten away with just sheer effort instead of running the drill correctly. Introduction to the 5-10-5. We're going to show a gross overview of the drill right now. The athlete's going to start into a 3-point stance. The athlete's going to accelerate to the first line, touch with the right hand, accelerate to the second line, 10 yards away, touch, and finish through. This is how the drill should be performed. You should have one hand touching. If the athlete starts with the right hand on the ground, that means they go to their right first. Again, a lot of times you'll see different combines and different testing days where they don't put a precedence. But if we're preparing someone from the NFL combine, and I'd like to make the test as similar to that as possible, if you have the right hand down, you will go to the right first. Now, you saw the drill. Now we're going to break into our working progressions on how we set this drill up. Now we're going to get into the technical application of this drill. The first 5 is 2 quick crossover steps. Most athletes will start with their hand down, sprint out of the line. I like crossover steps because that only gives me 90 degrees of deceleration position. I don't have to change my body from a full 180 to come back the other direction. I always want to think on this drill, once I stop, What's the quickest and easiest way for me to get out of that touch to accelerate to my next line? In the start position, we start with the right hand down, and we want to bias a little bit more weight to the outside leg. So he shifts a little bit over, but he's really biasing the inside edge of the left foot, and he's going to bias the outside edge of the right foot. From here, what I want him to think about is explode out by pushing up both feet as he attacks for that first line. As you can see, what is critical on this drill is where his weight distribution is. He wants to make sure that he has good edges of his weight distribution into the right foot on the inside edge, and then he's got more of his weight shifted into the left leg. If we were to draw a plumb line down based on where his weight should be, it would be straight down, biased toward the inside leg. This gives him better leverage to attack out of this touch to accelerate down to the second line. Common faults on this drill. A coach will tell an athlete not to get too close to the line and just reach for it. This is a problem, as you can see, as it shifts our center of mass over to the outside leg. We, in theory, maybe we're getting to the line quicker, but we're in a disadvantaged position to be able to get out and re-accelerate. Again, his weight is more biased now toward the outside leg. This is a bad position to be in because he has no leverage, or he has very poor leverage to accelerate back out of position. The second 10 of the drill, I used to break down into specific parts. But what I was noticing is with too much information for the athletes to actually comprehend and to really count their steps and decide how they should cast the leg and set up for that position. So now simply what I do is I put the athletes in a good acceleration-based position coming out of their first touch, and I tell them to attack 10 yards as though they're accelerating out of the 40. However, prepare for the line about 1 yard out. So as they start to work toward that 10-yard marker, start to turn and settle the hips into your touch. This will allow the athlete to be in a good weight distribution position, but to accelerate out. The second 10 of the drill, the athlete starts in a good decelerated position with a weight bias to the inside leg. He's going to attack through 10 yards of acceleration, but he's going to prepare it about 9 yards out to spin, turn, touch, and go. If your athletes are struggling with the crossover step or the crossover movement, we have some regression type drills that we implement with our athletes. It's a crossover step, 2 crossover stick, 2 crossover stick. This teaches the athlete really how to dive those edges into the ground of the feet. Awesome. The tall crossover drill is really to teach the athletes the coordination of the crossover movement, but then the weight distribution that they need to have when they get their line to touch. Again, as you can see, I wasn't concerned with the distance that my athlete covered. I was more concerned with the rhythm and the tempo of the step, and then the weight distribution on the deceleration. So the athlete is set up in their position. Key points here, making sure that we've got the weight biased to the inside leg. He's got good inside edge positioning of the back foot, and now he's going to drive out in acceleration. Common faults on this drill: too much weight bias to the outside leg. Again, if he reaches for that line or he biases too much weight on that outside leg, it's going to take a long time for him to transition his weight over to then re-accelerate. We want to make sure that we prepare for our deceleration with good thought process of how we want to accelerate next. Another common fault on this drill is which leg truly becomes the acceleratory leg. A lot of times you'll see athletes that slip and slide on this drill, and it's usually for 2 reasons. Either too wide of a base, or they're decelerating on the wrong leg and then re-accelerating on the incorrect leg as well. We want to make sure that we are decelerating off of both legs, but when we re-accelerate, it's off the lead leg. Now let's put the pieces together. Pretty good. Oh, that's a good one. Nice, Augie. I hope this has been a little bit deeper insight to the 5-10-5 or the Pro Agility. Again, I think what you'll find, instead of using this as a quantitative measure, using it as a qualitative measure of movement capability. Paying attention to the decelerative angles that the athlete takes into a stop, and then looking at their quality of acceleration as they reaccelerate out of the dead stop position. Again, where your base of support is relative.
All right, okay, lads. So there we have the 5-10-5 Pro Agility. So it's a really good explanation and breakdown of the different components through the 5, the 10, and the 5, the decelerations, the body positions, the forces we're trying to create by manipulating our center of mass, and the accelerations again. Okay, so that is our capacity builder. And again, if you have any questions, feel free to hit me up.